All right, I'm going to start with the Battle for Atlantis bracket. One, because it features both my and Greg's teams, and two, because I haven't really seen anybody talk about it. And I think it's a really interesting tournament. There's a couple takeaways that I had just even looking at the bracket, and I want to turn it over to y'all. Pull it up if you need to, but to see if your takeaways are kind of similar to mine, or there's kind of one big takeaway that I had.
Car, you want to go first?
Greg,
You
you
want
mind
me?
going first? Do you mind going first?
Yeah, I can go first. I'll just speak primarily from a Michigan perspective to start. I love Michigan's draw. I'm excited about the Memphis game. I think that even after the Memphis game, like there's a path here for them, whether it's to the title game or whether it's they lose to Memphis and they go 2-1. I feel very optimistic about their chances in this tournament. With that said, the tournament organizers are definitely racist. You can't put Juwan Howard against Penny Hardaway in round one and just act like we're not going to notice that. Although Hubert's also on the other side, so like they were going to probably pair up at least two of those three. But I'm calling you out. Like I'm onto your antics, Battle for Atlantis. Villanova Texas Tech is probably one of the least interesting games to me that anyone could have paired in any of these preseason tournaments, but it's mostly because Texas Tech has just been like gutted as a roster, given all the craziness from their coaches. And Villanova, a lot of people love. I'm not really buying Villanova, to be honest, this year. I think I'm more down on them than anybody else I've talked to. So, I really hope, I think my hottest like take here would be that Arkansas wins this tournament. I don't think Arkansas loses to Michigan or Memphis. So I think they have a cakewalk to the ship where they probably get North Carolina, and give me Must Bus over Hubert in a one game for a crown.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you just because this is what Must Bus does. This is how he really gets the bus going. This is when he accepts the tickets. He lets everybody on. He tells you to stay seated until SEC play. He wins himself a nice preseason tournament, has a good showing. He didn't win it last year, but had a great, I think, well, to me, Arkansas had a great showing in Maui, just showing their talent and what they had. Mm-hmm. So I think this is kind of where to really get the wheels going on the Must Bus in this early season tournament.
It's also awesome for Carolina's transfers that like Harrison Ingram might get a chance to play his former school, Stanford, and Cormac Ryan and Paxton Wojcik gets to start the season with the school they should have played at, Northern Iowa. So, yeah, that's exciting.
All right, we're moving on from that comment to get to my main takeaway, which is I think that what makes this tournament so fascinating is that every team on here, I'm taking out Northern Iowa, who cares? We're not talking about Mo Valley hoops on August 4th. No, thank you. But every team on here, minus you and I think there's a world where they can make the tournament and miss the tournament, really, except for Arkansas. I can't see Arkansas missing the tournament under Musselman. But every other team, they kind of have some fun, like, theoreticals that play out that give them a higher ceiling, like with UNC. I mean, I do think that, like, I think it's fair to say they might have the most talented roster on paper of this tournament. But after last year, they got a lot to prove. I'm not really going to say they've earned any sort of confidence yet. Texas Tech, you have a lot of people who are super high on the Grant McCasland hire. I'm tempering expectations a little bit more just because we've seen really good mid-major coaches flame out of the Big 12 recently, whether it's Shaka, whether it's Steve Prohm. Porter Moser's not looking great right now, or he hasn't exactly lit it on fire. Nova, kind of the same concerns as Greg. Like, the roster's great, but who knows what Neptune's going to look like this year. Memphis is kind of a wild card every year where they have some intriguing pieces, but not really anyone who's like a bona fide, even top 100 player in the sport necessarily. Memphis, I kind of like what you said earlier in the comments, Greg, about, or maybe it was Cart who said it, where they could win games in the 50s. And I actually think that could be conducive to a game like this, where like these games happen in hotel ballrooms. I got to imagine there's like something psychologically with players where it almost doesn't feel real because you're literally playing in a hotel ballroom. And that could be conducive to, like, you know, there's a world where Terrace Reed and Olivier Kamla are just locking down the interior and making it tough to score against opponents. And they surprise them here. And Amari Burnett, another good defender when he's at full health. Then Arkansas, I think they have talented roster, some intriguing transfers again, but not a ton of shooting. And we saw how, you know, I don't think that's enough to keep Arkansas out of the tournament, but we saw that play out a little bit last year with just sort of limiting their ceiling and not quite as good as some of the other Musselman teams.
Okay, this might be a full-blown homerism take, but as I listen to you go down the list of teams that just are wildly unimpressive, like I forgot Carolina didn't make the tournament last year. That's a true thing. Like, I'm looking at this bracket like, oh, Carolina's the 1 seed. I forgot. Like, they have a lot to prove. The last time Juwan Howard was in the battle for Atlantis. Anybody remember what happened?
I do. They beat Carolina by like 20, and we made it close at the end. And then they beat Gonzaga 2 days later.
It was Juwan Howard's second week as coach at Michigan. He inherited Xavier Simpson, John Teske, Eli Brooks.
He was dancing at half court when they won. Was that the tournament?
Eli Brooks was playing 30 minutes as a starter for the first time with Juwan Howard coaching an unranked team. They waltzed to a title, blowing out Gonzaga and North Carolina in the process. My hot take might be Michigan wins this tournament, fellas.
My guaranteed take is that you're losing the first game. Like we can move.
Losing to Memphis?
Yes. They're not. You can't guarantee that, man. Maybe there's just something about Juwan getting access to water slides, a little water park action in Atlantis that rejuvenates him and it allows him to tap into some sort of coaching magic for this tournament.
I've said this too. This is beyond the tournament, but I genuinely do believe this. The burden of expectations disappearing, I think, will be really good. Because when Juwan Howard has had teams that have not been, okay, nice face card, but when he's had teams that aren't supposed to be top 5 in the country, he's overachieved. And when he's had top 5, we know what he's done. So nobody thinks this team is going to make the tournament. Great. Roll the ball out. Give me Penny. Let's see what happens.
What will you do, Greg, if this tournament is the coming out party for Yusuf Kayat? What if Kamwa and Terrace Reed and Doug are just setting the tone defensively and it just frees our guy Yo-Yo up to get out there, hit a couple threes off the dribble, maybe dunk on somebody?
So if that's Yo-Yo, I'd be happy, obviously, but I would still be so scared it's not real. Like I would think it's just a 3-day out-of-body experience. If it's Doug, I will be insufferable. Like I will literally show up at Cart's doorstep with like, I don't know, like I'll be pretending that I'm a foot smaller than I am, pretending I'm Doug McDaniel in full Michigan uniform like I was in Ann Arbor.
That's funny because speaking of water parks, he's the only player in this tournament that will be confused for an actual kid when he's there.
Yeah, he's going to have to meet the height requirement for the biggest slide.
Right, he's going to be watching Yo-Yo and Juwan go down the slide. He's got to stay in Camp Snoopy.
That's interesting. I think that's the first small Doug joke that you've made since he punked your best backcourt in the Big Ten last year and won.
Did he? Because I remember that he wasn't old enough or tall enough to drink water by himself and lost to us in Breslin.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say like your usage rate
Your
on
point
Doug
guard doesn't drink water.
Your usage rate on Doug, of course he doesn't drink water. He drinks tequila. Okay, your point guard guzzles glizzies and is happy about it. Let's move on, Riley. What do you got?